welcome to our Bible meditation. This reading is for January 23rd, 2024, and we're reading Exodus 39 and 40, and then we're reading Leviticus 1 and 2.
And we're reading from the New King James Version. Exodus 39, making the garment for the priesthood. Of the blue, purple, and scarlet thread they made garments of ministry for the ministering in the holy place, and made the holy garments for Aaron, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Make an ephod. He made the ephod of gold, purple, blue, scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. And they beat the gold into thin sheets and cut it into threads to work it in with the blue, purple, and scarlet thread and the fine linen into artistic designs. They made shoulder straps for it to couple together. It was coupled together at two edges, and the intrinsically woven band of his ephod that was on the same workmanship, woven of gold, blue, purple, scarlet thread, and fine woven linen, as the Lord commanded Moses. And they set onyx stones enclosed in settings of gold. They were engraved as signet, engraved with the names of the sons of Israel. He put them on the shoulder of the ephod as memorial stones for the sons of Israel, as the Lord had commanded Moses. Making the breastplate, and he made the breastplate artistically woven like the workmanship of ephod of gold, purple, blue, and scarlet thread, and fine woven linen. They made the breastplate square by doubling it. A span was its length, and a span width is doubled. And they set it in 4 rows of stone. A row of sardius, topaz, emerald was the first row. Second row was turquoise, sapphire, and a diamond. Third row was jacinth, agate, and amethyst. The fourth row was berry, onyx, and jasper. They were enclosed in settings of gold in their mounting. There were 12 stones according to their names of the sons of Israel, according to their names, engraved like a signet, each one with his own name according to his 12 tribes. And they made chains for the breastplate at the ends, like braided cords of pure gold. They also made 2 settings of gold and 2 gold rings, and put the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. And they put the 2 braided chains of gold in the 2 rings on the ends of the breastplate. The 2 ends of the 2 braided chains they fastened into 2 settings, and put them on the shoulder straps of the ephod in the front. And they made 2 gold rings and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate on the edge of each, which was on the inward side of the ephod. They made 2 other gold rings and put them on the 2 shoulder straps underneath the ephod towards its front, right at the seam above the intrinsically woven band of ephod. And they bound the breastplate by means of its rings to the rings of the ephod with the blue cord, so it would be above the intrinsically woven band of the ephod, that the breastplate would not come loose from the ephod, as the Lord commanded Moses, making other priestly garments. He made the robe of ephod of woven work, all of blue, and there was an opening in the middle of the robe, like the opening of a coat in the male, with a woven binding all around its opening, so it would not tear. They made the hem of the robe from pomegranates of the blue, purple, and scarlet, and fine woven linen. And they made bells of pure gold, and put the bells between the pomegranates on the hem of the robe all around between the pomegranates. A bell and a pomegranate, a bell and a pomegranate, and all around the robe to the minister, as the Lord has commanded Moses. They made tunics artistically woven of fine linen for Aaron and son, a turban of fine linen, exquisite hat for fine linen, short trousers of fine woven linen, and a sash of fine woven linen with a purple, blue, and scarlet thread, made by a weaver as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then they made the plate of the holy crown of pure gold, and wrote an inscription like the engraving of a signet, "Holiness to the Lord," and they tied it to the blue cord to fasten it above the turban, as the Lord commanded Moses. The work completed. Thus all the work of the tabernacle of the tent of the meeting was finished. And the children of Israel did according to all that the Lord commanded Moses. So they did. They brought the tabernacle to Moses, the tent and all its furnishings, its glass, its boards, its bars, its pillars, its sockets, the covering of ram skin dyed, covering of badger skin, the veil of covering, the ark of testimony with its poles and mercy seats, the table with all its utensils, and the showbread, the pure gold lampstand with its lamps set in order, all its utensils, and all the gold oil for the light, the gold altar, the anointing oil, and the sweet incense, the screen of the tabernacle door, and the bronze altar, its bronze poles with all its utensils, the laver of its base, the hanging of the court, the pillars, the sockets, the screens for the court gate, its cords, its pegs, all the utensils for the service of the tabernacle, for the tent of meeting, and the garments of ministry, to minister in the holy place, the holy garment for Aaron, the priest, his sons, garments to minister the priest, according to all the Lord had commanded Moses. So the children of Israel did all the work. Then Moses looked over all the work, and indeed they had done it as the Lord had commanded them. So they had done it, and Moses blessed them. Exodus 40. The tabernacle erected and arranged. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, on the first day of the first month, you shall set up the tabernacle, the tent of meeting. You shall put it in the ark of testimony, partition off the ark with the veil. You shall bring in the table, arrange the things that are to be set in order on it. You shall bring it into the lampstand, the light its lamps. 5.
Okay. You shall also set the altar of gold for the incense before the ark of the testimony, and put up the screen for the door of the tabernacle. Then you shall set the altar of the burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting. And you shall set the laver between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and put water in it. You shall set up the court all around, and hang up the screen at the court gate. And you shall take the anointing oil, and anoint the tabernacle and all that is in it, and you shall hallow it and all its utensils, and it shall be holy. You shall anoint the altar of the burnt offering and all its utensils, and consecrate the altar. The altar shall be most holy. Somebody wants up on my lap. Okay. And you shall anoint the laver and its base, and consecrate it. Then you shall bring Aaron and his sons to the door of the tabernacle of meeting, and wash them with water. You shall put the holy garments on Aaron, and anoint him and consecrate him, that he may minister to me as priest. And you shall bring his sons and clothe them with tunics. You shall anoint them as you anoint their father, that they may minister to me as priests. For their anointing shall surely be an everlasting priesthood throughout their generations. Thus Moses did, according to all that the Lord had commanded him, so he did. And it came to pass in the first month of the second year, on the first day of the month, that the tabernacle was raised up. So Moses raised up the tabernacle, fastened its sockets, set up its boards, put in its bars, and raised up its pillars. And he spread out the tent over the tabernacle, and put the covering of the tent on top of it, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He took the testimony and put it into the ark, inserted the poles through the rings of the ark, and put the mercy seat on top of the ark. And he brought the ark into the tabernacle, hung up the veil of the covering, and partitioned off the ark of the testimony, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He put the table in the tabernacle of meeting, on the north side of the tabernacle, outside the veil. And he set the bread in order upon it before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He put the lampstand in the tabernacle of meeting, across from the table, on the south side of the tabernacle, and he lit the lamps before the Lord, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He put the gold altar in the tabernacle of meeting, in front of the veil, and he burned sweet incense on it, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He hung up the screen at the door of the tabernacle, and he put the altar of burnt offering before the door of the tabernacle of the tent of meeting, and offered upon it the burnt offering and the grain offering, as the Lord had commanded Moses. He set the laver between the tabernacle of meeting and the altar, and put water there for washing. And Moses, Aaron, and his sons would wash their hands and their feet with water from it, whenever they went into the tabernacle of meeting, and when they came near the altar, they washed, as the Lord had commanded Moses. And he raised up the court all around the tabernacle and the altar, and hung up the screen of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. The cloud and the glory. Then the cloud covered the tabernacle of meeting, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter the tabernacle of meeting, because the cloud rested above it, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. Whenever the cloud was taken up from above the tabernacle, the children of Israel would go and onward in all their journeys. But if the cloud was not taken up, then they did not journey till the day that it was taken up. For the cloud of the Lord was above the tabernacle by day, and fire was over it by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys. And that concludes the book of Exodus.
Right. Now, Leviticus 1, the burnt offering. Now the Lord called to Moses and spoke to him from the tabernacle of meeting, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When any one of you brings an offering to the Lord, you shall bring your offering of the livestock of the herd and of the flock. If his offering is a burnt sacrifice of the herd, let him offer a male without blemish. He shall offer it of his own free will at the door of the tabernacle of meeting before the Lord. Then he shall put his hand on the head of the burnt offering. It will be accepted on his behalf to make atonement for him. He shall kill the bull before the Lord, and the priest, Aaron's sons. Aaron's sons shall bring the blood and sprinkle the blood all around the altar that is by the door of the tabernacle of meeting. And he shall skin the burnt offering, cut it into pieces. The sons of Aaron, the priest, shall put fire on the altar, lay the wood in order on the fire. Then the priest, Aaron's son, shall lay the parts, the head and the fat, in order on the wood that is on the fire of the altar. But he shall wash its entrails and its legs with water, and the priest shall burn all the altar on the altar, shall burn all on the altar as a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by a fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. If his offering is of the flocks, of the sheep, of the goats, as a burnt sacrifice, he shall bring a male without blemish. He shall kill it on the north side of the altar before the Lord, and the priests, Aaron's sons, shall sprinkle its blood all around it on the altar. He shall make it cut, and he shall cut it into its pieces with its head and its fat, and the priest shall lay them in order on the wood that is on the fire of the altar. He shall wash the entrails and legs with water. Then the priest shall bring it all and burn it on the altar. It is a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And if the burnt sacrifice of his offering to the Lord is of birds, then he shall bring his offerings of turtle doves and young pigeons. The priest shall bring it to the altar, wring off its head, burn it on the altar. Its blood shall be drained out at the side of the altar. He shall remove its crop and feathers and cast it on the altar on the east side into the places for ashes. Then he shall split it at the wings, but shall not divide it completely. And the priest shall burn it on the altar on the wood that's on the fire. It's a burnt sacrifice, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord.
Leviticus 2, the grain offering. When anyone offers the grain offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour, and he shall pour oil on it and put frankincense on it. He shall bring it to Aaron's sons, the priests, one of whom shall take from it his handful of fine flour and oil with all the frankincense, And the priest shall burn it as a memorial on the altar, an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. The rest of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. And if you bring as an offering a grain offering baked in the oven, it shall be unleavened cakes of fine flour mixed with oil, or unleavened wafers anointed with oil. But if your offering is a grain offering baked in a pan, it shall be of fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil. You shall break it in pieces and pour oil on it. It is a grain offering. If your offering is a grain offering baked in a covered pan, it shall be made of fine flour with oil. You shall bring the grain offering that is made of these things to the Lord, and when it is presented to the priest, he shall bring it to the altar. Then the priest shall take from the grain offering a memorial portion and burn it on the altar. It is an offering made by fire, a sweet aroma to the Lord. And what is left of the grain offering shall be Aaron's and his sons. It is most holy of the offerings to the Lord made by fire. No grain offering which you bring to the Lord shall be made with leaven, for you shall burn no leaven, nor any honey in any offering to the Lord made by fire. As for the offering of the firstfruits, you shall offer them to the Lord, but they shall not be burned on the altar for a sweet aroma. And every offering of your grain offering you shall season with salt. You shall not allow the salt of the covenant of your God to be lacking from your grain offering. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. If you offer a grain offering of your firstfruits to the Lord, you shall offer for the grain offering of your firstfruits green heads of grain roasted on the fire, grain beaten from full heads, and you shall put oil on it and lay frankincense on it. It is a grain offering. Then the priest shall burn the memorial portion, part of its beaten grain and part of its oil, with all the frankincense as an offering made by fire to the Lord.
Hmm.
Interesting. Burnt offering, the grain offering, the peace offering is coming next. And then there's a sin offering,
Yeah.
a trespass offering, offerings with restitution.
Yeah.
So Leviticus is kind of just a lot about law,
Yeah.
the laws, and yeah.
So it's exciting. So you might want to go to Leviticus and read it so you'll be with us and be understanding what we're reading and maybe even give you an insight. So
Well, Leviticus is a little dry because law is always dry.
yes, right. Yeah.
But still, we need to know, right?
Right.
So, anyways, so that concludes our reading.
God bless.
And God bless. And we will be back with the next reading
Right.
for the 24th.
God bless you.